Hey everybody, I'm Matt. We're here at Powder7 World Headquarters.
I'm Alex.
And we're taking you through our best all-mountain skis buyer's guide picks for the 2025-2026 season. So we've pulled a lot more skis for the video this year. There is also a written version of this buyer's guide on our Liftline blog, which you can check out down low in the description. While you're down there, give us a subscribe so you get notified when we post new videos with ski talk and comparisons and ski life stuff and stoke. This category, all mountain, is the big ticket item, maybe the most controversial category on the market because people define it in many different ways that are specific to themselves. The way we think about skis in all mountain is going to be waist widths that are roughly like as low as the really high end of the 80s, low 90s underfoot through right around 100 underfoot. So from different brands, you might have multiple skis, one on the wider end of this category, one on the narrower end. Those skis might be the same from some brands or really different from some brands. So we've just pulled a smattering of some of the ones that have stuck out to us. There's some new models up here and some familiar favorites.
Yeah, we got a lot of fun colors this year too, so let's dive into it. I want to know about that hot pink ski right
The hot pink ski, it is pretty eye-catching. Disco raspberry, fuchsia. I'm not quite sure what you call it, but
I
it's
like disco fuchsia.
disco fuchsia.
Yeah.
Well, I said disco raspberry, but
Oh, good point. Yeah.
potato. Anyway, this is the Rossignol Sender Free 100. And if you're thinking, wow, Rossi introduced another Sender ski, you're right. They haven't cut any. We'll get to another one up here probably next so we can compare the two. But anyway, the hot pink ski was all the rage last spring toward the end of the season when people were getting on them and testing them. So this ski does slot in waist width wise right next to the Sender Sol 102, but there are some pretty notable characteristics that make it ski differently than that ski. So if you're familiar with the Sender Free 110, this ski is more of a little brother to that ski versus the Sender Sol 102. So we've pretty much taken the same shape from the Sender Sol 110, a lot of taper in the tips and tails, significant amount of splay back here in the tails, with some healthy camber underfoot. A recommended mount point that is around -3 centimeters, so it's a pretty playful mount point, which kind of lines up with some of the Senders that Rossi has introduced before, but it's more playful than their more directional Senders, which we'll get to a little bit later. Versus that Sender Free 110, the 100 features a softer, less stout core. They took out the carbon alloy matrix, less metal. You've got still an 18-meter turn radius. So what does all this talk add up to? This is a 100 waisted ski that is kind of funny because it's got a pretty directional shape to it. For sure, not as wide of tails with as much taper as some other like true blood free ride skis around this waist width. But it's got a bunch of rocker, especially in the tip, and then a really progressive flex. So if you flex this ski right next to the 110 or even the Sender Sol 102, this is going to feel like the most progressive, supple ski of the bunch. So that lends itself really well to jumping off things, popping, really lively and energetic carving. But it also has a longer turn radius versus the Sender Sol 102. So at 18 meters versus 16. So that means it wants to attack the fall line a little bit more rather than kind of slithering through your lines. Skiing them back to back, I really enjoy the Sender Free for that lively, energetic feel. And then it kind of locks in with that longer radius when you do want to attack the fall line and kind of go straight down rather than more side to side and finessey.
Yeah, you'll see on this wall as we kind of dive into it, but there's a lot of things targeting that playful charger category. And I think that this slots in really well here because it has that like poppy energy to it. But I skied this ski in the 178, which is a little bit of a big ski for me. As much as I want to try to ride the biggest skis around with the boys, but I wasn't able to get that kind of energy out of it that Matt was looking for. So it's definitely a ski that you're still going to need to like put some energy into to get that energy back. Like it's not a soft noodle that's just gonna like be bopping around everywhere. Like it does require a bit of input to get that playfulness out of it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. And why don't we just dive right into the Sol 102 so we can off the bat compare these two. Like I said, Sender Sol came out, it's already been around for a season or two.
Yeah, it came out last year.
Yep,
Yeah.
last season, predating the Sender Free a little bit. So it's right there at 102 underfoot. The biggest difference is that the Sender Soul's side cut is a little bit more pronounced. So it's going to slither a little bit better. Skis with a shorter side cut, 16 meters. If you're in bumps, you might feel that like quick turn slither ability to navigate mogul fields. And kind of paired with that is a little bit more of a stout flex pattern underfoot. There's a little bit more metal here, and also more of a stiff flex throughout the ski. So I think the Sender Free is pretty stout underfoot, but I think you get more flex, and then in the tail, quite a bit more splay with Sender Free. Whereas with Sender Soul, let's compare them this way. With Sender Soul, you get more of a planted feel, less of a poppy, lively energy feel, but it's kind of a really reliable, damp feel under your feet.
Super predictable and consistent. That's kind of a hallmark for Rossi, it feels like. Just a really smooth, plush ride. So if you've got any like funky snow or refrozen crud, it does a really good job at quieting it without it feeling too heavy. Like it doesn't, they do the air tip tech in the tips for both of these skis. And that really helps keep the swing weight up front low. It feels like you can get them to turn pretty intuitively. But underfoot, it feels like it's a much heavier ski, which is a really nice balance compared to some other skis that are loaded up with metal, like 3 sheets of metal or whatever.
Totally. And it's kind of interesting, these skis debuted in back-to-back years. So we had each of them at our ski test for our staff in back-to-back ski tests. And they were both met with rave reviews from our testers at both tests. Mm-hmm. But how do you think they differ as far as who should pick each one?
Yeah, I feel like the Sender Free 100 is for someone who's looking to maximize every little side hit they see. They might be trying to transfer bumps and bump lines and are just looking to kind of maximize poppability off of anything they see and are looking at the mountain, the whole mountain as a little bit more of a playground. Whereas the Sender Soul is going to excel with someone who wants a really consistent and like versatile all mountain ski that's just going to be really predictable on different kinds of snow conditions and can kind of go everywhere with a smooth ride. This one screams versatile all mountain to me, whereas this one is kind of like a playful, almost like light freestyle ski. Mm-hmm. We were flexing the tails earlier and they're pretty bendy. I was surprised, especially compared to the Sender Soul. So.
Yeah, from my favorite day ever on the Sender Soul 102 was at Crested Butte, down the chutes on the front side, and it was like dust on crust conditions, mm-hmm. really mogully in there, kind of narrow. So you just kind of stand on them, drive into the front of your boots, and they stay planted to your line, kind of slithering through, staying damp with crappy crust underneath good snow. Yeah. And it felt really predictable and reliable. My favorite day on the Sender Free 100, nobody asked me what my favorite days were, but I'm just going to tell you. Sender Free 100.
We all want to know.
Mobbing around Monarch Mountain, Colorado with your buddies.
Yeah.
The sun's out, the snow's soft, and you just kind of want to jump off everything and ski fast and fool around.
Yeah.
Best day on that and then best day on this. So that gives you a bit of a flavor for how people might differentiate.
Yeah. The top sheets almost actually give you a bit of a flavor too. Like this is the bit of the flashier disco and this is kind of that quiet killer, you know.
For sure.
With the camo gray.
Maybe date and marry.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, Alex, I stole the top of this segment with 2 skis. What do you want to dig into over there?
That's a good question. I do want to talk about a new ski. So let's chat about the Salomon QST 94. I'm really excited about this ski. So the whole Salomon QST line is getting overhauled, which is really exciting. They've had a ton of popular skis in that line, like the 92 and the 98 and the 106. So the 106 gets a redo. Check out our big mountain video for that. But for the all mountain category, we've got a QST 94 that we've got here, and then a QST 100, which isn't here right now, but is still just as beloved. But the QST 94 is gonna kind of amp up the front side firm snow performance, I would say, compared to the old 98 and 92. That 100 is gonna be your kind of classic, like it's the closest Salomon's gonna get to a twin tip, whereas back here, you've got a ton of rocker, but if you take a look at the shape, that's a pretty squared off tail with not nearly as much taper as the 100. So when you've got the ski on edge, locks onto a carve pretty well. But what Salomon's doing is each ski gets a different tail shape, but the tip shape is kind of that classic QST, tapered, really rockered, and it's got that same kind of, it feels like a QST still when you're skiing it. Like it's got that intuitive turning where you feel like you can just link carves up easily, whip the ski around when you need to. But this ski just really levels up on firm snow, I would say.
Yeah, I think this versus the QST 92 was really popular, and I think this one kind of levels up the top end.
Yeah.
It's more of a consistent performance in a lot of crappy snow types, honestly.
Yeah,
I think the suspension is a little bit better, and I think that it holds up a little bit better in crappier snow, especially going at faster speeds. But with the taper tips you mentioned, the rocker profile, I still think it's a pretty accessible ski.
Yeah, it didn't feel too difficult to ski. There's no metal in this ski, right? They've got the corked amplifier has been redone, and then they use a basalt mat, which is kind of cool. It's like pulled to tension before they press the ski, so that adds some torsional rigidity. But it doesn't, again, have any metal, so it feels fairly easy to engage the ski, especially if you're in bumps or in some steeper terrain. It doesn't take like a whole lot of effort to engage the shovels, which I think is a great feature. But like you mentioned, if you're skiing it a little bit more aggressively, it definitely supports the top end, I'd say.
Yeah, I think within the QST collection, they just gave each ski a little more of a specific personality, right? A little more specifically front side all mountain with still, powder hunting tree chops. But then the 100 is a little more like playful 100, and the 106 is a little more dialed in for kind of big mountain skiing.
Yeah. You still got a ton of camber in here. This ski still felt super poppy and playful. It just has more versatility for railing those in between storm groomer days,
For sure.
And what's really cool is they've gone full unisex sizing on the QST line for all the skis. So you get 2 color options and then a full size run in each one. So I think that's a pretty rad way to do it.
Absolutely. At risk of spending our whole all mountain segment talking about these fun, non-pedal to the metal, free-ride skis, I'm going to go with a new Blizzard ski that debuted a season ago. This is the Anomaly 94. So the Anomaly collection from Blizzard replaced some old big name heavy hitter favorites, Brahma, Bonafide, and Cochise. And that's big stuff when you replace skis that have been around and been popular for that long. So I think I've spent a bunch of days on especially the 94, the 102, and then the 88 as well. This 94 is pretty awesome as a collection with 3 models should be. The middle child is just really dialed, kind of the best expression of the connection the technology they've put into this ski's construction. So the coolest feature about the Anomaly is what Blizzard does with the metal on the inside. The Brahma and the Bonafide, for example, they could have been called kind of planky by some skiers. They were awesome for sure, but you could call them a little planky because they had 2 full sheets of metal. The Anomaly collection kind of breaks up those sheets, and by breaking those sheets, it's like 2 full pieces of metal, but it's broken into 3 pieces, and they're allowed to shear against each other. So when you lay into the Anomaly on firm snow, on groomers, or in some consequential terrain, all of the different pieces kind of link up and give you the torsional rigidity you need to hold an edge, chase high speeds or high edge angles. But if you are skiing trees or bumps, or you're taking your foot off the gas a little bit, the metal, by being able to shear, makes the ski a little bit more forgiving, feels a little more lively versus the Brahma Bonafide, in my opinion. And it's just a really nice, refined version of those skis. So I'm a huge fan of the Anomaly collection. I think the 94 is perfect for somebody who wants like kind of a definitional all mountain ski on the more demanding end of the spectrum. I think it's not as demanding as the previous versions of the ski, and maybe not as demanding as 1 or 2 up here I'll get to later. But it still is for people who want to be forward in their boots, rail carves, and have a really damp yet lively feel on snow.
How I always describe this, and tell me if I'm wrong, but it feels like out of the multiple metal sheets, metal laminate skis that kind of fall into that more demanding category. I like to think of the Anomaly as like the most lively of the bunch because of those different metal layers. That's what it feels like to me.
I think so.
Yeah.
I absolutely think so. And it's also, they're like the Stormrider, which I'll kind of tease here, also feels really lively. But to be honest, and it might be a hot take, I think that the Anomaly has a little bit more heft and backbone through the tip than the Stormrider does.
Stormrider like has track through choppy snow.
Exactly. So if you're in like crappy snow and you really want to track, stay planted to your fall line, in like steep bumps or like the steep chutes or anything like that, I kind of lean Anomaly for that, which might be a hot take, but I'm a huge fan.
We love hot takes.
Hot take. Huge fan of the Anomalies.
The women's version of the Anomaly would be the Black Pearl series. I'd say the Black Pearl 88 and 84 kind of live in their own category, but the 94, pretty analogous to this ski. They just remove, there's still 2 layers of metal in there, like the ones that can kind of shear independently. They remove that full layer out of the women's version. So you get a little bit lighter of a ski, a little bit less like, just less stiff overall in the women's version. But
totally. Why don't you match that energy with another more demanding directional ski?
Maybe one of the most famous of the more demanding skis on the wall. The infamous, lovingly referred to dad ski, I'd say. The Volkl Mantra. This is the M7, the 7th generation of Mantra, which is kind of crazy. This was updated last year, just a new graphic, but they have done a lot of fun stuff to this ski to make it kind of more modern, I would say. We talked a little bit about this with the Mantra 88 in our frontside video, but you've still got a pretty hefty sheet of metal. They call it the tailored Titanal frame, and they basically have very like strategic little cutouts in the metal frame to help keep it from feeling planky like Matt was talking about. That can kind of be the problem when you add a lot of metal to a ski. So at slower speeds, it winds up not feeling so like dead. You still got like quite a bit of compliance as you're moving through kind of maybe some tricky bumps or if you're just picking your way down something. So that's a really nice upgrade. You got new tailored carbon tip, which just helps this tip of the ski track really precisely. And then special to the M7 is their 4D drive radius, 4-wheel drive.
Engage.
Yeah, which is just kind of helping create like a more lively turn and really like help you play with your turn shapes a little bit more. You can kind of take quick slalomly turns or, you know, really open up for like long fall line turns, I think. This is kind of one of those skis where you're not locked into one turn shape, which is kind of cool.
Totally. Or one speed, which is kind of like if you still want to be a pretty athletic, strong skier to drive this Mantra, just like the Mantras have always been. Mm-hmm. But I think if you are that skier, you're front of your boots all day and you want to take your foot off the gas or kind of slither around versus going like Mach 5 all day, this is probably the most friendly Mantra I've ever been on for doing that.
Yeah.
So again, I would hesitate still if you're like an intermediate skier and you're buying your first pair of skis.
Yeah.
I would maybe hesitate still, but I do think this one is more accessible when it comes to, what a grossly overused buzzword, accessible. Yeah. I think it's a little more friendly for multiple turn shapes, multiple turn lengths, and at high or lower speeds than previous Mantras.
Yeah, but it still lives in that like decidedly directional category. Yeah. It's very quiet, has really good suspension. It just requires like a pilot who's been around the block before to kind of drive it, if you ask me. But I love this ski. I think it rips, and it's 96 underfoot, and I just really like that waist width as an all-mountain ski, like just above 95 and not quite 100. Gives you a lot of, still feels quick enough edge to edge on groomers, but gives you a little bit of surface area to bite into softer snow.
Totally.
Especially if you live in the Mountain West. You've got some nice soft groomers to chomp up.
For sure. Well, you said pilot, and so that I'm going to just leap on that segue and relate it to airtime.
Whoa.
Which is something I think of with the new Nordica Unleashed 98CA.
Airtime, wow.
Airtime. Getting in the air, piloting your skis. The Unleashed CA is kind of an interesting introduction this year because when Nordica released the Unleashed family a couple of seasons ago, This is honestly what the ski that I thought the Unleashed regulars were going to be. More of an homage to the old Soul Rider. What the Unleashed ended up being was more playful than the Enforcers, and with like a more encouraged a more playful all mountain style, but they still had a sheet of metal in them. They were still pretty torsionally rigid and not super light. So I think that's really cool. We have a lot of staff who really enjoy the regular Unleashed, myself included, for skiing with a pretty playful style, but where you can still really lock in, especially on variable snow types.
I always really liked that. We've been saying predictable a lot, but that 108 in particular is really smooth riding when you're dealing with like soft chop. It just like cuts through it all, but you've got that kind of weird pivoty feeling too with all that rocker and splay. So I really like the 108.
Yeah, for sure. And that gave people who kind of want to ski with that little bit more loose style, but really locked in and chargy dynamic, an awesome option from Nordica. Unleashed 98 CA takes out all the metal, retains the shape from the Unleashed, and gives you that all mountain playful ski in the Nordica collection. So poppy, a lot of tip and tail splay, pretty standard rocker profile for like an all mountain freeride freestyle ski in this category. I just really enjoy this ski because a Nordica is not going to make like a noodle.
Yeah.
You know, and so this is still a ski that holds up if you're in cruddy snow, which is the first place I ever skied it. It was in manky, crappy snow at Loveland. And it holds on fine for that, but you want to be on this ski if you're just surviving those conditions in order to then go kind of jump off stuff, jib, play around, ski with a loose and fun style. It's cool that Nordica added that to the collection because it brings back what the Soul Rider added to the collection and packs it into this package.
The one thing I found about this ski that I think is true for the other ones, but it's not quite as like wiggly or like just quick really underfoot, especially compared to like maybe like a ripstick or even a Paragon. It just doesn't feel as like snappy edge to edge. I don't know if that's how you felt too.
Yeah, I think so. It definitely doesn't feel super rigid. And it's definitely not trying to like link up razor sharp carves on groomers and stuff like that. And it's not going to be as planted to a fall line in bumps as like the Unleashed regular or a bunch of these other skis up here that are a little more stout below your foot. It's going to be more for the person who kind of wants to double bumps or like skip over the tops of chop and stuff like that.
Ski really dynamically.
Ski very dynamically. Yep, for sure. So
cool.
Big ups. I'm really glad that Nordica added this to the collection to round it out.
Yeah, looks great too. Show them the bottom.
Yeah. Very cool bases. We like base technology around here.
Yeah, big base. We're base heads.
All about that base.
I'll do a little playful ski too while we're at it. A new ski for this year, believe it or not. This is the Crows Camox. Good save. The Camox has kind of been around forever, or at least forever in my brain. I feel like this ski I talked about a ton my first couple of years at Powder7. Just because it's a really great, and still continues to be with the updates, like really great, like my first all mountain ski, like my first like I'm leveling up and I'm exploring more of the mountain. Like this is a great way to go. 97 underfoot, no metal, full poplar wood core, and super poppy. I mean, you can see the camber underfoot. This is actually a little bit lower than the old camber. So this ski loses a little bit of that like pop and energy, but I'd say it's a little bit more reined in now. So the ski actually feels a little bit more like smooth and consistent. Like you don't feel like you're busting at the seams with energy, which I sometimes felt like on the old Camox. So a little bit more refined, a little bit more smooth in and out of the turns. They give you a little bit more rocker in the tip and tail. Again, just to make it a little bit more easy to wiggle around in tight terrain. But it's still very much Camox, I feel like.
Yeah, I think you've made a great point about who this ski is really for. It is an awesome first, like all mountain ski in the sense of like, I'm going to go more off piste. I'm going to like dip into the trees, dip into the bumps. I'm going to have my first like playful all mountain ski where maybe I've had like more directional rentals or whatever. Like I bought this ski for my dad for his 78th or whatever birthday as kind of your first like easier to ski, a little more dynamic, a little softer flex. And he loved it. And then our staffers have always really enjoyed the Camox. And then I think like a graduating renter, like an intermediate skier who's getting their first pair of skis and wants to explore the whole mountain, especially out here in the West, this is also a great boat for those people.
Well, still being really fun to carve on. Again, all that camber really helps with that. So, you know, it's great. It's just, it hits that sweet spot for like, I'm excited to explore the mountain and get into different little nooks and crannies and do some powder hunting, but I still spend a good amount of time on trail. Like this ski is super fun to carve on still. So big ups for the Camox.
Yeah.
And a little Camox Birdie as well for the ladies.
Heck yeah.
Same ski, just cuter graphic, if you ask me.
Nice. Well, I'll let the cat out of the bag on one of my favorites for this season and a few seasons gone by here. And this is from Dynastar. There have been a few mountains around the West where this ski has just kind of like exploded and it's everywhere. I've heard some tell of that from like Jackson. And so I think the M Free collection, after a few years now and a couple subtle refinements, is starting to really catch on. And it's been a favorite of mine. Our staff have really enjoyed it. So last year, Dynastar updated the 108, which we talked about. And so those same updates this year apply to what was the 99 and is now the 100. So 1 millimeter of waist width difference isn't going to do anything. It just makes it a new model. And it now hits the all coveted 100 waist width category.
I'd say this year is the year of the 100.
It is the year of the 100.
There's a ton of 100s.
We should probably do a separate video just about that. Stay tuned. But yeah, M Free 100, reasons that I love it is just how well balanced it is and how amazing the suspension is. So we talk about suspension more in mountain bikes than we do in skis, but I think it's a really fun way to talk about some skis when they do have a really good consistent flex pattern and they kind of gobble up and even out different types of snow. So I think that the M Free 100 is playful, and I would put it up there right alongside a lot of other playful all mountain skis in the category, like ARV 100 or Camox, Sender. So it's playful in that way, but I think this ski, don't want to use the versatile word because it's overused, but I think for a wide variety of conditions in a wide variety of places, which is kind of what you're doing if you're really using an all mountain ski. This ski kind of maintains its consistency, its suspension, and its very uniform flex pattern wherever you take it. When you look at it with all this tail splay, tip splay, rocker, taper, you might think it kind of falls apart in crappy snow. And sure, it's not as locked in as like the Anomaly or some others that I'll talk about in a little bit, or even maybe the Soul 102. But I think it does a really nice job of that. And then when you get it in softer snow, or you're kind of popping through bump lines or navigating tree alleys, it skis like a much more loose ski than it is as a whole. So Dynastar's big deal is the Hybrid Core 2.0 now into this ski, which is a polyurethane mixture in the core of the ski that is designed to level out vibrations, provide a smooth and damp feel. And I think it does really well with that.
Yeah, I think if you come from like a really technical directional background, you might find the ski to be a little loose just because of all of that. Like you don't have a lot of tail behind you, and it's a fairly progressive mount point too. Like it's versatile, I would say, for playful skiers, right? Like it's just provides like that dampness and suspension that you don't find with skis with this shape very often. So if you like the feeling of something like planted and smooth riding, but you want to be able to ski with a centered stance and just get that, like get a pivot in, like a full sideways pivot in really easily, this is top tier. Yeah.
Yep, for sure. I keep finding myself recommending Dynastar M Frees to friends who want to buy skis, and that's kind of a tell, I guess.
Yeah. It's not really a buyer's guide video if Matt doesn't talk about M Free in one way or the other.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm a fan. Well done, Dynastar. Check them out.
They're great.
Still on the playful side of the all-around designation, I think, but more capable at like higher speeds or doing more aggressive and consequential things on the mountain than some of the other ones that tilt more playful.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Since Matt gets to talk about a favorite, I get to talk about a favorite. I've got the new Volkl Revolt 101. Let's get the graphic right. How about that? There we go. This is a new ski in the Revolt family where the mantra family from Volkl. M for metal. Metal Mantra is in that directional, kind of like hard charging metal category for all mountain skis. The Revolt is going to be on the much more playful side. So you've got kind of more of a freestyle core. Those like narrow Revolts are on the podiums at X Games, all the way up to the Revolt 121, which is a super popular POW ski. This year, Volkl decided to take their Revolt 114 shape and kind of put it on this more all-mountain chassis. So like the Sender Free 100 is kind of a mini-me of the Sender Free 110. The Volkl Revolt 101 is a mini-me of the 114. And I think it's a great shape for all mountain like terrain. You've got this like more kind of pintail shaped tail back here with pretty deep rocker, but again still pretty low slung, not like a ton of splay. On snow, the ski just feels super drifty. It feels like it's very slithery through tight terrain and just is like really intuitive turning up front. At the same time, there's no metal in this ski as far as I know. I can't remember for sure. Maybe like just a little metal plate underfoot, but a fairly stiff wood core. But again, still you don't have that like heavy metal feeling. But it still is performs really well when you've got like chop and crud. Feels like it carves way better than it ought to, and just like really slots as a versatile, all-around, all-mountain ski, especially if you're okay with putting a little bit more input to the ski. It's no noodle for sure.
For sure. I was about to offer to talk about this ski in this video, and I saw Alex's fist just ball up like she was going to punch me in the face, because it's not an all-mountain video this year if Alex isn't talking about the Revolt 101.
I love this ski.
It's a great ski. I think, to Alex's point about the pintail shape coming down from that 114 waist width, I think that helps a lot with tight places, mogul lines. You're not catching this tail on stuff. This is very much not a hooky ski right around at 101. So I think, I think it's very well rounded. I think they're like Sender Free, just do a little bit of comparison game. For me, I think the Sender Free 100 would be a little bit more like a lively, explosive energy. And then Alex's word, drifty, is a word that I really like to use for just being planted with a progressive flex and kind of like slithering through tight places and bump lines. And that's one of my favorite things about it.
Yeah, it's weird because it doesn't have like a pivoty feel like the M Free or the Sender Free does. It still feels, I think the mount point's like -6 or so. It's like still more directional, but you can release those tails pretty easily, especially if you've got pressure up front. So it's like, I like to have a bit more tip in front of me than a more centered ski. It just allows me to feel like I've got like, I don't know, it just suits my stance a little bit better. So this is perfect for someone who wants something that's maneuverable, but you still want a little bit of ski in front of you to flex into and engage.
For sure. And I think at least for me, if you're familiar with how that Revolt 114 skis, it's definitely on the more demanding side for like a big mountain freeride ski, and we'll get to it in a later video. I think this ski in the category is actually a little bit, I wouldn't think of it quite as demanding as the 114.
Yeah.
I think as those wider skis move away from being heavy, burly chargers like the Gotama back in the day, or the Katana too, I think, the Revolt 114 is starting to occupy that space as one of the more demanding freeride skis on the market. I don't think that carries down to the 101. I think it's a lot more friendly to a little bit more of a variety of ski styles and speeds and stuff like that, which is another thing that makes it a tasty option.
Yeah, I think something to sum that up, I'll ski this in the 175, which is a little over the top of my head, approaching on the long side for me. And I can also ski in the 168. That 175 gives me a little bit more girth to ski a little bit faster, more fall line, but I'd be happy on the 168 too if I'm looking for something a little bit more maneuverable and quick. So, it's a sick ski.
More girth. I love that. More girth.
More girth.
I'm going to hop right on that segue to go to
Yeah.
a girth ski. We talked about these a year ago when they debuted. It's a new, now a year in collection from Kastle, the Paragons. So we've got a narrowest here at 93, mid-range, and then a wider one at 107. And so these skis, last year we talked a lot about how a lot of new skis in this freeride category, or this all-mountain freeride profile, are trying to do everything, right? They're trying to be every type of ski to everyone, and I think it's really cool that Kastle maybe didn't do that with Paragon. I was talking a little bit about the Revolt 114 occupying that like chargy ski in a category. I think Paragon is now one of the skis of a few more, but one of them occupying the more pedal to the metal, tank-like all-mountain ski with a freeride shape. So even down in this 93, if you check out the shape, a lot of tip taper, some tail taper, generous rocker in the tip, some low slung camber. You're getting free ride from looking at it, which is kind of a cool thing that brands are doing where they're splashing some free ride tech into narrower skis. And that's awesome for exploration. So if you're trying to get off piste, explore some chutes, some tree shots, navigate some bumps, ski some fresh snow. These skis are more capable than ever in this category at these narrowish 93 waist widths. East Coast people will hate me for saying narrowish 93, but potato.
You live here now.
I live here in Colorado now. So that's really cool, but I think what Kastle does here on the inside is they still keep a lot of power and torsional rigidity in the Paragon. So that pairs really nicely with the shape for people who want to attack the fall line. One of our good friends who runs the ski shop up at Loveland, shout out to Scott, tests all the skis every year like we do. And this is one that just absolutely catapulted to the top of his list. And skiing with him a lot, he's that type of guy who likes to jump off stuff, but his number one name of the game is just attacking the fall line with a fairly directional style, occasionally slashing. This is the kind of ski that holds up in big mountain terrain, whatever you want to do. And so I think in the 93 waist width, it's really cool to have those characteristics in a more nimble ski, where if you're trying to explore more parts of the mountain, but you still want to lean on the side of carving and frontside performance, either based on how you ski or where you ski, it's kind of a top of the list option for you.
There's also a Paragon 101,
Yep.
right? How would you say they compare?
I think
that's still in that all mountain range that we're
totally.
at.
I think it's more of the debate there would just be on what you want to spend your time prioritizing on the hill, right? Like if you're chasing soft snow, that 101, you're exploring more parts of the mountain with soft snow finding in mind. The 101 is great. I think if you want more of a traditional feeling all mountain ski where you can rail carves, get to some high edge angles, attack fall lines, like I'd probably rather have the 93 on, say, Mary Jane for steep, long bump runs. It's a little bit more forgiving versus those wider options too. Just the way they've built the ski. It's a little less pedal to the metal than the wider versions, but compared to other skis in this category with some freeride chops, it's more aggressive and an awesome option for exploring with a nimble yet powerful option.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
This ski just like rises to the top of my mind for someone who's like, they don't really make skis like they used to anymore.
Totally.
Like that's got a real traditional feel where you want to be on your shovels and in the front of your boots to get the ski to react the way you want it to.
For sure.
Let's talk about another directional ski, but not quite as let's do this one. This is the new head core. A new core. Can you believe it?
Feels like it's been a decade.
It does feel like it's been a long time. So I started at the shop in 2020 when lightweight freeride was like the hottest thing on the market. And there wasn't really anything doing it better than core with their lightweight core, and then their graphene, which is a lightweight but strong material. I think they use it in their tennis rackets too. Just kind of their magic sauce. As time has gone on, I feel like people have kind of moved more towards like heavier skis, looking at that M3 and the Paragon, the Mantra. So had kind of like took a look at the core series and added some heft to it. So this has still got I would say like a fairly similar shape in that you've got like some tip rocker, some nice taper, and then that tail rocker back there too, like a very modern all mountain ski shape, but they've added metal to it. So this is actually the head core TI. We're looking at the 100 right now, but there's a bunch of different sizes. And this ski feels pretty different on snow. It feels a lot smoother, it feels a lot more predictable, but it still has that. One thing I loved about the old core was how precise it was. It was light, but it was still really directional. And it felt like if you were on like some steep, chalky weirdness, you could tilt the ski and it just like locked in and it was on that turn, no skidding or washing. And this ski retains that. So I was really happy to still feel that with like a little bit more heft and a little bit smoother ride.
Yeah, I think that the addition of that metal in there and then the change up in the core construction kind of retained the things that the old core did well, unless you loved how that was a lighter weight ski, which changes here. But I think it retained what that did well, and then just opened this ski up by giving it some more lively energy that comes from the metal, and more of, I think, a consistent, supple flex pattern.
Yeah, it's more round. I feel like
Yep.
the other one was really light and stiffed all the way through, especially through the tip.
Yep.
This has a much more progressive flex, at least through the front half of the ski.
In some ways, it's a lot more similar than the old core, I think, to some other ski constructions that we think of in the category. So I actually think it's maybe a little less different versus the rest of the skis in the category than the first core. But I like this version better than the original, just for that. Again, we'll get back to suspension. Like, I think it's got a much more reliable, predictable feeling suspension that kind of bends with you rather than giving you that kind of light yet stiff feel.
Yeah, it was weird. You could like run into a bump funny with the old core, and because it was so uniformly stiff, it kind of like would rock you. And that made it, even though it was light, I felt like it was not a great option for progressing skiers off piste. Whereas this one, even though it's a little bit heavier and has more rigidity underfoot, it actually feels better for someone who's interested in exploring more terrain at slower speeds, just because it's more compliant up front.
Yeah. And what's the story with men's side, women's side, the white ones versus the black ones here?
Yeah, great point. Thank you for reminding me. So they have a different core. The women's ski is a full poplar core, and then they add, it's really interesting, like recycled water bottle stringers. So adding some tension without too much weight. And then this is going to be Karuba and Beach, I think. It's definitely a stiffer wood core compared to the women's version. But other than that, the shaping's the same. I've skied both. The women's definitely, it's kind of similar to Black Pearl Anomaly. It's more about like your weight, right? Like the reason why they're doing these different between men's and women's is because the women's out there, women are generally lighter and smaller, but it's really what's going to be about what suits you best. So the women's version is a little bit lighter and a little bit easier to engage and get on the shovels, but the shaping's the same, and I think a lot about what we're talking about is true for the women's ski as well. But if you know you love to like ski hard and charge hard, and you're a lady ripper, don't be afraid to jump up to this version.
For sure.
Yeah, I believe these are going in a full size run, actually, whereas the white ones are just going to be in women's sizing.
Yep.
So if you're a hard charging lady but want like a 164, you can get that. So.
And if you want to see more, if you want to hear more about the new cores and see Alex and I ripping around Loveland on them, hit that link in the upper right-hand corner now, and it'll take you over to our core review, video review from a nice day at Loveland.
Yeah, a beautiful day at Loveland.
Beautiful. Oh, every day at Loveland. Well, that's not true, but they all feel beautiful to me. I'm going to throw an exclamation point on my role in this video. Actually, no, not quite yet. I have one more. I teased it because I get so excited about the Stockli Stormrider. So Stockli Stormrider 95 right here. We talked about the 88 in our narrower front side all mountain video, and we got to talk about the 95. In a lot of ways, especially if you read some magazine ski tests that came out this fall, you can kind of start to think about this ski as a definitional all-mountain ski for a lot of people. I think, you've got true to form for Stockli, Titanal brush, metal-looking finish. It's really chic. It looks aggressive and fast, metal on the inside. Very squared off directional shape, tiny little splash of tail rocker here. You're getting that directional all-mountain, more demanding ski profile that you think of when you think Swiss-made Stocklis. But what I think catapult the Stormriders, especially the 95, to the top of the list in each of their categories is how they're actually not as demanding to ski as they look. Now, I wouldn't say I endorse it for like your first pair of skis off of rentals and you're intermediate trying to cruise around, or if you're, looking for an all-mountain freestyle ski, I wouldn't go that far. However, with a lightweight core, especially through the tips, and more of a soft flex in the tips versus the very stout flex under your foot through the tails. Stormrider is actually a lot more fun and less punishing no matter where you take it on the mountain. So you're not going to find a Stockli that isn't fun on groomers, at least in my experience. So these hold up if you're pushing steep edge angles. Although you do get more of a round flex carving these Stormriders for sure versus like AR, AX, skis like that, predictably. But if you jump into mogul lines or you're trying to explore some birch alleys or even some back bowls, I think that you'll be pleasantly shocked, like a lot of our staffers are every year at our ski test, with how light and snappy and precise the Stormriders all feel. And if you do get a little back seat, like post-lunch run, it's actually not quite as punishing as you might think.
Yeah, it's like how light and snappy and precise it is without requiring as much like full, like especially compared to the Paragon, at least for me, like this doesn't require nearly as much attention all of the time. At least for me.
Yeah, I think so. I think like we talk a lot about skis that use metal, and some that have like 2 full sheets of metal can start to feel planky, or even ones with like a directional shape can start to feel hooky. And I'm just kind of blown away with how Stormriders do neither. For how they do have a really high top end, but everything feels smooth with linking carves. You can smear these tails if you need to shed speed in bump lines.
It's just crazy because there's not that much taper back
which is surprising for how easy it is to release these tails on snow. And I think a lot of that comes from the flex pattern and the weight in that core.
What are they doing over there in Switzerland? Why do they keep
It's pretty impressive.
Such cool skis?
So yeah, big ups for Stormrider. I still can't afford them, much like I can't afford a house, but they are awesome.
Yeah, definition of Swiss Army knife.
For sure.
Cool. Well, we'll do one more kind of slotting in that more demanding category. This is the new Rossignol Arcade 94. We were super stoked when we heard about this ski because the Arcade series came out last year with an 88 and an 84, and they kind of pitched it as like an all-mountain piece ski, right? Like a more of a traditional shape, but with some modern all-mountain flair so you can take it anywhere. And they really hammered that home with a 94, in kind of slotting more solidly in that all-mountain category compared to 84 and 88. So this has got very similar build to the 88 in terms of like you've got your tip rocker, a little bit of tail rocker, a little bit more in this one than the other one. Tons of camber underfoot actually as well. And this ski, I think it feels pretty heavy. It definitely, to me, like I expect to see a system binding on this, just like looking at it. It's got really thick sidewalls, and I find this ski to just be really torsionally rigid and really supportive on edge, really quiet. It's a Rossi without being planky. It's got a really cool flex pattern through the tip of the ski that doesn't, again, feel like too torsionally stiff up front, but when you've got it on edge, it feels solid and it tracks really well. It holds a really nice long carve. Not a ton of like tail taper back there. So
for sure.
Yeah.
I think this shape too, just with how wide you are in the tips and then the side cut profile, something about it when you carve on an Arcade, it just feels like it really wants to pull you into the next carve. Whereas some skis, you really need to be in those shovels in order to smoothly link your carves. I think you can just kind of stand on these and distribute your weight, and it just pulls you right.
It's a self-driving ski.
It's kind of a self-drive. I don't want to go that far, Soul 7. But I do want to say, if you're looking to carve an all-mountain ski, it's unique in the way that it performs like a narrower recreational carving ski in this 94 chassis. And I think if you've been following Rossi for a long time, you remember those experience skis, like the 100 was a culty favorite for a while as like a ski that looked like just a frontside ski, but in an all-mountain waist width. This is Rossi's closest thing to that Experience 100 since that ski.
Yeah.
And I think this one, to Alex's point, is a little bit more uniformly friendly across, wherever you want to take it and across different ski types and styles, but it's kind of made in the image of that one.
Yeah, but you're still looking at a pretty like heavy directional ski with some metal in it. So, this isn't, I don't see someone who's stoked to just starting like to get into the bumps, like it's not going to feel that forgiving in the bumps if you haven't skied a directional ski like this before. But I also want to call out the old Sender 94 Ti from Rossi. When I skied this, it reminded me a lot of that, which was kind of like a sneaky favorite here at the shop. Like, was just kind of a gray top sheet. Didn't really look very cool, but it's skied really well. Yeah.
Really well. Like the more directional side of the Sender, you can see some of that DNA come into Arcade here.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So now I'll give you the exclamation point on my segment, which is a ski that you've definitely heard of before, Nordica Enforcer. This is the 99. They re-upped this ski a year ago. You can see our on snow review of the Enforcer, the newest edition from Loveland, up in the right-hand corner. Smoke that link to see more. This is the 99. So in case you're unfamiliar with what Nordica did in the latest iteration of Enforcer, you've still got a sturdy ski with plenty of metal in here. The biggest upgrade they made was adding a little more splay and a little deeper rocker line to the tails. Purpose being, maintain that top end of the Enforcer 100, which was kind of like a category definer for metal laminate 100 skis for half a decade. And other brands kind of followed the charge of that Enforcer. I think as other brands started to play with shapes, they were able to make their skis as chargeable, but also more freeride happy with a little bit easier releasing tails than that first Enforcer. So I think Nordica rose to the occasion on that, and I think their update, in my opinion, retains everything that the 100 Enforcer did well, and also gives you a little bit more releasability in the tails. You know, we talk about it a lot for what value that is, but like charging through bump lines, a quick slough, you know, to shed a little bit of speed without altering your fall line. That's my biggest yay rah for Nordica on that shape change.
On the ladies' side, you get the same updates for the Santa Ana. Quick reminder on the Santa Ana, another women-specific model in that instead of the full 2 sheets of metal, you get 1 sheet of terrain-specific metal, they call it. The wider the skis get, the less metal they get. But it's a really cool shape because it's like full width through the tip, and then it narrows down through the midfoot and then widens again, and then narrows and then widens again. So it adds like some of the other skis up here, like metal just comes up to here and you can kind of get a loose tip. Whereas on the Santa Ana, that tip is like very planted and tracks really well through choppy snow, which is one of my favorite things about the Santa Ana. Funnily enough, like normally I'm like, yeah, give me the men's ski. I want like the heavier one. But for the Enforcer, for me, I don't get enough energy out of this ski, especially I took it off of a little side hit and I felt like my legs were getting like dragged down just because it is a little bit heavier of a ski. So this is one where I definitely think weight like plays a factor, and you know, it's just a heavier, like more burly option, especially compared to the women's version.
And I think what we were talking about with the Revolt 101 compared to some other similar type skis being a little less poppy, but more like releasable so that you can slither. If you want a similar character, but in like a more technical ski with metal that's even more directional, that still gives you the ability to like slither through tight spaces in that metal package, this is actually kind of a good comp in that way.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. What you got next?
Let's talk about, okay, I have way more skis than you. So.
Well, I started with 2. Well, I went back to back. I hogged the front of this video.
Actually, we'll talk about we'll just go in order now. The Sheeva, the Blizzard Sheeva, the men's Rustler is the analogous one to this. Another women-specific kind of construction here. The shape is going to be the same on the Rustler. They both have these, I love this metal shape from Blizzard, these metal prongs, they call it flux form. So these strips run all the way down from tip to tail, all the way truly from tip to tail. And then underfoot on the women's side, you get this piece of fiberglass. On the men's side, you're going to get the same metal strips, but a piece of metal underfoot. I've skied both back to back. This feels more lively to me, feels a little bit more energetic underfoot. The Rustler definitely does have like a little bit more heft and a little bit more like, kind of like definitely more torsional especially just with that metal being like right underfoot. So you get a little less pop coming out of a turn right underneath your feet, but you do get a little bit more power. But the Sheeva has been super popular for a long time here at the shop because you've got all this like really cool rocker, especially in the tail. This feels similar to the Camox, like a really great ski to like start to explore off trail with, just because it's really forgiving in the tail. And because of the lack of metal, like through the midfoot of the ski, like you've got the metal edges to kind of give you power and precision when the ski's on edge, but it allows those the ski to kind of shear, so it feels very forgiving to kind of reel yourself back in if you wind up in the back seat. So
Totally, and I think these skis, along with the Rustler, are such great options for people who maybe were racers in the past, or they have moved to the West, or they want to explore, they want to try out a freeride all mountain type ski after having been on more directional frontside oriented skis, and they want to do that, but they're very hesitant. They're good skiers, and they're very hesitant to go all the way to like an
M free,
no metal. They might call those noodles, or be afraid they'll be noodles. So I think people who love the Sheeva and Rustler love how it strikes that balance. So it's got all this rocker. It's really fun, smeary, but you get metal right over your edges, so it holds a great edge on crappy snow, and feels planted under your foot. It's funny when you ski just the Rustler or just the Sheeva. I guess it would apply to just the Rustler versus some other skis in the category. You notice the metal, you notice a little more directionality versus more playful skis. But if you ski Rustler back to back with Anomaly, you think this thing should be in the terrain park.
Yeah.
So it's funny from whatever perspective you go at it. I think that just underscores how versatile it is with metal and a playful profile.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think sometimes when you look at a ski wall and you're like, okay, I see the Anomaly 94, and then I see this Rustler 9, which is 96 underfoot. Like, why does the ski company have two skis in the same thing with the Center Sol 102 and the Center Free 100? But it's really that shape and just, think about it with like that kind of style. Are you going to be like looking to like slash around a little bit? Or are you looking to really optimize like carves on firm snow and like precision on firm snow?
Yeah, and I think that kind of gets at why we hesitate on here to like name a best ski, because even from a few brands, you'll have two that are right side by side, and it's more about how does one match what you want to do on the mountain versus like being better or worse than the other one.
Yeah, these skis are all built with such like killer ski design and technology these days. Like they all ride really well in different conditions. And we talked a lot about like widening like the ceiling and the floor. And that's just, skis are able to do that now because they have such crazy design techniques.
For sure.
So it's not all smoke,
100%.
But this is a really fun ski for both men and women. Yeah, and this is the 9 for 96. There's also a 102 for the Sheeva and Rustler 10. Again, just depends on like what kind of flavor, if you're looking for more firm snow performance or if you've got like soft snow hunting in mind.
For sure.
I'm gonna let you talk about this one because I have one more over here.
Oh man, cool. Yeah, Fischer Ranger 102. These skis have not changed since Fischer made the big change to the freeride Rangers a few years ago.
That teal one from a couple years ago, that was that new generation.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's fun about these, coming off of talking about the Rustler and the Sheeva, so what Blizzard did with Rustler and Sheeva with the metal, they extended the metal further into the tips and tails of the ski. It gives you a stiffer flex pattern throughout. And I think that's really good for some skiers who want that metal performance throughout their ski. And I think versus the original Rustler and Sheeva, which just had that metal plate right under your foot that tapered out into carbon and wood fore and aft, a ski, that's actually what the metal profile does. You probably can't pick it up on the camera, but you can see cutouts a la the old Rustler and Sheeva right under your foot with a notch. They call it Shape TI for the marketing smoke, but it's basically slightly tapered notched metal, notches right under your foot. That helps the ski flex with a little bit more of a medium progressive character. And then a rocker profile that does kind of match those older Rangers and is also pretty standard for this category. Not a ton of tail splay, but a little bit. So easy to release. But I think what I really like about these new Ranger 102s is just how right below your foot, you can really stand up on these skis. You can lay into them And what you get back is enough torsional rigidity to stay really planted to your fall line. But in your tips and your tails, you've lost that metal, really low swing weight that way, and it makes it confidence inspiring. You're kind of glued to your fall line, whether you're in trees or bumps or a chute, but you're able to whip these around, whether you got a skid or whether you want to be in those shovels and really like putting the ski where you want it in a precise way. I just think this metal profile is awesome for people who want a bit of metal right under their foot and do not want to have to drive their ski through the shovels.
Yeah, it kind of allows you to, since it's got a directional shape, it's still going to suit someone who's, skiing with good, traditional form, but it doesn't require you to be like here all the time. You can kind of choose to like let off the gas a little bit. It's like very accommodating of a variety of ski stances, I feel like.
For sure. And if you get, like, I love skiing these in like soft chop.
Yeah.
Because some people like to just kind of ski fast through soft chop and like skip over the top. And you can't really skip over the top of soft chop if you have really stout, stiff tips. So it's really nice to ski with that style, like a really dynamic style with these Rangers, because you get enough flex in your tips to do that, but you're not going to feel like you're going to get, thrown for a loop or go kind of ass over tea kettle.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. We also really like the Ranger 108 in the big mountain category. I think the shape and the construction like suits that terrain really well too.
I almost stole these.
Yeah, mine. And super sick die cut bases.
Yeah.
They do this so there's no waste because they just take the purple base and swap, so.
Purple and pink starbursts.
Yeah, we love it. And then the last ski on my wall over here, we've got the Scott C. Do you know what C stands for?
Ski everything everywhere all at once.
Yeah. Nominated for Best Picture. Ski everything, everywhere, anytime. There we go. Took me a minute. This is a ski we highlighted in the big mountain category last year. This is the C98. There's a C108 and a 118, I believe. The 98 became like very popular among testers. So we slotted it in here under like the kind of more playful category. No metal in this ski. It's just a really versatile shape. You've got a little bit more rocker and then quite a bit more rocker in the tail compared to some of these other ones up here, and then a pretty good amount of splay. And then you'll see this on a lot of atomic skis and some older Armada skis, but you've got that bevel both in the tip and the tail back here. Oh, just kidding, not in the tail. I thought I saw it earlier, but the tip, and that just really allows you to kind of like be smeary and drifty. It makes it really fun in soft snow. So you're gonna get a really cool kind of surfy feel here. Makes it really fun if you're just working with like 3 or 4 inches. Like a shape like this and a ski like this is gonna maximize that fun quite a lot. But we were all really impressed with how well this carved. It's just really consistent, doesn't feel like it's gonna skid out or wash out underneath you, even though it's got kind of like this looser shape.
For sure, like it's one of these where any amount of soft snow on any ski is great, but this thing comes alive with like 2-3 inches of powder up, a foot of powder.
Yeah.
And shape with all that tip taper and the bevel you talked about is so awesome for maintaining like that smooth performance, easy turn linking in like heavier or crustier powder, where some skis get a little bit hooky. These just stay really smooth, round, and consistent.
Yeah.
I actually skied these on a totally opposite conditions from that day.
Oh, I forgot.
At Silverton, Colorado, on like wind hammered, scary snow down steep Silverton San Juan chutes with actually the new ATK high free hybrid tech binding.
Yeah.
And I was a little bit afraid before I dropped in, and I had to stay on it as much from the binding being a lightweight binding as from the ski. But I was pleasantly surprised on very consequential terrain in very suboptimal conditions, how well the sea not only, it didn't feel like I was just surviving. I could thrive a little bit if I found some wind buff pockets. It had enough to hang on and a really nice suspension for kind of maintaining a smooth character in really choppy garbage.
Yeah, this is a perfect ski to me if you're looking for that one ski quiver out here that's just gonna like tackle everything really nicely and in a fun way. That feels really confidence inspiring when you don't know what the conditions are gonna be. So
I think I see a lot of similarity there to M Free 100 with the build and what it's good at, and that nice even suspension.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And you get
Ooh,
seahorse.
Seahorse action. Cute. Is that your exclamation point, Alex?
That is my exclamation point.
Nice.
I think we did all of them. Yeah.
Right on. Well, thanks for watching to the end of our, well, you might have just skipped straight to the sea, but
probably,
thanks for arriving at the end of our all mountain video. If you prefer the written word, as some of us do, you can find the buyer's guide also on our blog with photos and write-ups from our ski test. That's linked in the description. Give us a subscribe so you'll be the first to know when we drop new videos and product comparisons and stuff like that. And per usual, we've got all these skis right here at Powder7 HQ in Golden, Colorado, and online at powder7.com for your perusing and purchasing whimsies.
We ship everywhere, anytime, all at once.
All at once. Nominated for best ski shop? Okay, well, I think we're done with this one.
Have a great winter, and as always, we love to chat skis, so give us a ring if you have any questions about any of these goodies up here.
Happy turns.